Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen, and today I want to discuss and explain the effects of the warp in the Warhammer 40K universe. If you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to leave it a like and please do share it, and if you want to see more of them, then please do hit subscribe. But that said, let's dive right in. The warp, also known as the Immaterium, is a twisted, hellish realm separate from our own reality, inhabited by beings so alien to the human experience and possessing abilities beyond human understanding that they are often referred to as demons by the common man. However, this nightmare real is not immune to manipulation by beings within our dimension. The sensations of belief and emotions have direct ramifications within the warp. Any intense emotion felt by a being within our reality, like love, anger, and fear, create a kind of energy distortion within the warp. This energy distortion is fed upon by the entities living within the Immaterium, increasing their power and scope of abilities. The more intense the emotion, the greater the distortion created, and in turn, the more energy capable of being consumed by warp entities. This is one of the driving reasons warp beings seek to cause specific events to occur within our realm. A demon feeding on the distortion produced by anger will seek to orchestrate events resulting in as many beings feeling that emotion as intensely as possible. Whilst this generates a large amount of energy distortion in the warp, it is a single potent event that will dissipate over time. Belief, however, has a slightly different effect. Belief could be described as a stream of energy flowing into the warp, causing a perpetual area of distortion, providing a constant supply of energy to be fed upon, a form of life's blood. Should a specific belief be persistent for long enough, a warp entity will eventually be birthed specifically feeding off of that specific form of belief. Should enough belief be fed upon for long enough, that specific warp entity will in all practical terms develop to a god-like level. And this is in fact how many of the godlike beings came to be within the warp. The ancient Eldar Empire, fully aware of these facts, used the power of belief to create their own pantheon of gods in order to benefit their own society. Creating a god of science to bless and inspire the greatest scientists of the species. A god of war to bless their warriors. A god of architecture to assist their greatest builders, and so on. As incredible as this level of manipulation over the warp might be, it is not without its dangers. Should a superstitious species believe strongly enough, they could inadvertently create a warp entity bound by the rules of their original religious practices. Imperial records have shown that a form of machine spirit exists to varying degrees within many of the machinery throughout the Imperium. From the humble Lasgun to the colossal titans, warp entities do exist, bound to the rules of the humanity's beliefs, mandating the proper religious rites be observed and practiced, ensuring the proper operation of the machine. This is widely speculated as the reason why miracles of the Emperor occur, as well as the Sisters of Battle being capable of performing acts of faith upon the battlefield, healing wounds, banishing demons, and bolstering battlefield performance. And with billions upon billions worshipping the Emperor of Mankind as a god daily, has the Emperor reached actual godhood, or has a being within the warp been created operating as the God Emperor? None can say for certain. These facts alone would make the warp a danger beyond full comprehension, yet the risk is compounded by the fact humanity relies on the warp to travel and communicate between the stars. Time and distance are not bound to our rules when one enters the warp, and should one enter the warp in one location and exit the warp in the next, it is entirely possible that the crew perceived the passage of a few weeks while the galaxy around them has aged centuries. And the opposite could also easily occur. One could enter the warp and have spent centuries within the immaterium, yet only a few hours might have passed in the material realm. Bearing these risks in mind, should one choose to enter the warp, one must bear some form of protection, lest they wish to have their bodies and very souls torn apart and devoured by the countless warp entities. The Imperium of Man accomplishes this by encasing their ships in an energy field with a pocket of our reality, creating a buffer zone of real space between the ship and warp space, referred to as a Geller field. This crucial bit of technology allows humanity to travel the tides of the warp in relative safety. If the Geller field were to fail for even a fraction of a second, warp entities could slip in and infect the travelling ship, causing a host of different effects ranging from spawning diseased insects, spreading a plague, to manifesting a full demon, wreaking havoc throughout the ship. Should the Geller field fail outright, the crew of the travelling ship would be exposed to the full force of the warp, leading to a wide array of possible results. Imperial documentation have actually recorded full warp exposure, and this would result in a mild effect of an individual's eye colour changing, as well as far more severe effects such as individuals being constantly wreathed in flames, severe mutations, and occasions of crew members being fused together, or being fused with parts of the ship. To compound matters, once the crew is affected by the warp, the ship will be descended upon by a countless number of demons, desecrating soul and flesh. The risks posed by the warp extends far beyond those who simply travel within it. Those who seek to harness the energy of the warp for a specific purpose also bear the same risk, and in specific circumstances bear additional risks. Frequently referred to as Psyches, these individuals who are capable of drawing upon the energies of the warp for us on the battlefield and as a means of communication across light years, do so knowing that the mere strain of the act could easily drive one mad. In some instances, warp entities could take advantage of the connection between Psyches and the warp to travel between realms and possess the individual making the connection to the warp, allowing a warp entity to operate within our reality with a vessel. The Immaterium is also very much capable of posing an immense hazard to our realm on a macro scale. When the barrier between our dimension and the warp thins enough, a tear between realities forms, stretching across hundreds of light years, spilling warp matter into our universe. Often compared to as typhoons and hurricanes of ancient terror, these warp storms can engulf entire star systems, and in some cases entire sectors within the galaxy. And among the most extreme of these warp storms on current Imperial record is the Psychitrix Maledictum, a colossal warp storm stretching across billions of light years, splitting the galaxy in two. If one was unfortunate enough to reside on a planet engulfed by a warp storm, one would expect to witness the ground crack and birth flame, to see streams of fire rain from the skies, legions of demonic entities rampage across your world, and billions of the world's population corrupted and enacting every form of depravity on the remaining populace. The very sky would shift into the nightmare reality of the warp. The 40K universe has no shortage of dangers, but none can doubt that amongst the most terrifying is the warp and all birthed from it.